welcome to another episode of the Sec Tech Podcast. I'm here solo today, so bear with me. Today, though, I have a wonderful guest, Ann Hamilton, who is an amazing project manager, has been doing it for a long time, all over the world with huge companies, small companies, everything in between. And we're here to talk a little bit about project management. We're going to talk about the difference between product management and project management that, we have discussed product management in the past with other guests like Chris Barba. And we're also going to talk about some other things about how projects can fail or succeed and what we can do about it. So, Ann, so good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Well, Ken, I'm honored to be here. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I think we could just talk for hours about these very topics.
No, I know. Before we started, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, and we were kind of chit-chatting, and the whole time I was like, man, I wish we were rolling right now, because we had already said so many good things. So we'll probably retread a little bit of that ground. But I just kind of want to start it out. I usually like to get a sense, and you can go into as much detail as you want, but how you came into this role, like where did you come from? To get to this spot where you're kind of, you're in high demand. I can't, she'll get embarrassed and say that, no, it's not true. But folks, it is true. Everybody wants Ann on their projects. So, but how did it start? Where did you come from to get here?
Believe it or not, I started life as an auditor.
Yeah.
With Price Waterhouse.
Oh,
and I
wow.
think on my third day, I started counting the days to retirement, and I realized I was in the wrong place. I did stick it out for about 2.5 years, and I'm grateful because, there's something about accounting. It's that equation.
Sure.
1 + 1 is 2, no matter what, and you can't change that. And so that gave me a very good grounding, and also in process. When you're working with big companies and you're looking for a debit on the 2nd floor and a credit on the 50th floor, you really start understanding, finance is kind of that pathway that shows you how processes and functions are working too, amazingly enough. So that gave me a very good grounding. But I ended up sitting next to a lot of C-level executives who had big world problems to solve. Like, should we outsource our technology, for instance? I moved to London from South Africa and worked with Citigroup. And at the time, they were discussing whether to outsource to India. This was many years ago, dating myself, but it was when that big outsource wave started. And they would say to me, because I was in finance, and go away and do the analysis. And I would go away and do the analysis. I say, it's not the best idea for you to do because, yes, your resources are more expensive onshore, but at the same time, you're going to have a lot of cultural differences. You're going to have double management to manage those differences, manage the gaps, manage the time zones, just all of that stuff. You're not going to have stable teams that have inbuilt in-house knowledge. You're going to have to repeat that knowledge. Your documentation is going to have to be way more complicated, etc. And then they'd say, thanks, Ann. Great analysis. You're totally right, but we're doing it anyway.
Sure.
And then I go, okay. And they go, well, while you're here, do you think you can help us make that happen? So project management really started for me working on things like outsourcing technology and operations from London to Dublin or to India. And then I just got a taste for it because it was where the action was. And just pretty much when I moved to the United States, initially I started working at the investment bank for Citigroup in front office, but it didn't take me long to get tired of that. And then actually moved to a big project. And this was going back 20 years where the Global Capital Markets Group was spending over $1.5 billion on realigning all of their back office technology, finance, operations. What had happened in the 90s is a lot of these big companies did a lot of mergers and acquisitions, especially acquisitions. So they ended up with hundreds, even thousands of legal entities all over the globe. But after they did the big, market, the merger of stocks, the acquisition part, the fancy part, and had the party, no one actually did the back office integrations. So all of these legal entities were speaking a different language. There was no accounting standard. There was no technology standard. There was no operational standard. So, of course, if you're sitting in head office and you've got hundreds or thousands of legal entities around the globe, and you're trying to consolidate that information to know what your risk position is, you can't do it because you're collecting that information manually at the time through faxes and other manual media, some even in the mail.
Wow.
At that time. So long story short, that was kind of the thing that led to the crash in Wall Street. You know, people talk about the big companies, big banks not knowing their liquidity positions and making big bets.
Yeah.
You know, and what people don't realize is that the fundamental problem was not so much the making of these, you know, these big trades, but doing that because they didn't understand that everybody, all their legal entities were operating this way, and there was no way to balance their risk. So when the Fed came in and said, okay, we've bought all your shares up, we've given you money to keep you being, you know, continue being liquid. However, you're going to have to fix your operations, your technology, and your processes. So a lot of my experience became war stories working for Wall Street firms like Citigroup, Bank of America, and AIG and Deutsche Bank right after they'd failed, and learning just how wrong things can go when you're not looking at your processes, you're not aligning and integrating your technology, and obviously understanding your financial position.
Wow. Well, yeah, so it's been an amazing journey for you. And so I do want to get into a little bit deeper into that. But one thing that we had talked about beforehand that we wanted to talk about is we had a really great guest on, Chris Barba, who works for BOK and was talking about the product versus the project mentality. And I think he had a lot of good things to say about that. You know, but he is kind of trying to push the product mentality. And I think that the points that he made were really good points, but it's not like projects go away. It's, you know, projects to me seem like we have a goal. We're trying to achieve something. We need to manage this process to get from where, like, discover where we're at, which is something that you and I have talked about at length. And then how do we get from there to where we want to be? And that, you know, and that's a little bit different than I have this product and I want to continually improve it. I want to keep innovating and stuff. So do you want to talk a little bit from your perspective as a project manager, what you think about the difference and maybe where those things apply, where a project would maybe be better or a product mentality would maybe be better?
Yeah, thank you for that segue, because when I watched that podcast, I was really blown away. I thought that Chris did a fantastic job in explaining the difference between sort of product management and project management. You know, we've seen a rise of product management over sort of the last 20 years. And I think it comes back to continuous improvement. Projects are incredibly time-consuming to set up. And they're very disruptive. You have to disrupt SMEs, subject matter experts who have a day job. You have to bring in project managers and other experts at considerable cost. You have to stop a lot of other activities of executives and decision makers so that they can focus on this project or others. So it's very disruptive to your daily cycle. Whereas, just say you got a new ERP system. The project part is the initial setup. That's big. But then once you set up a roadmap for, okay, we've got the system now, we're going to slowly incorporate automation of other parts of the division or the company into this ERP system. You know, make that part of your annual budgeting. When you're looking at your annual budget, I think Chris said it, it's not, okay, I have to do this work, how much is it going to cost? It's actually, you know what's my budget for this year and what can I do with that budget? So in other words, if I've got $100,000 this year, well, it's probably more than that. Say I've got $500,000 this year, can I afford a BA? Can I bring in a developer? Can I have a product manager, and can I also have a an application owner. Let's say I've got a group of 4 people. So it's cross-functional team. I create this team. They get to know each other really, really well, and they know the product. They know the technology. They know the processes, and they know the people. So every year you just sit down, you say, okay, with my $500,000 and my 4 people, what can I do? And you go, well, you know what? I have to do some BAU lights on stuff. Always comes first. Then I can do a little bit of, we've got an upgrade. The vendor is doing an upgrade. Let's make sure we do that. Let's stay on top of our upgrades. Let's not wait 5 or 6 years for the first upgrade. Let's do that as they come in. And then the next thing should be, what do I have left to do improvements? And plan that. And if you continuously do that, it becomes so easy and so cost effective because it's just natural. And I've seen that work over and over again, where you have this group, this cross-functional team that just works year in, year out together. And what that does is that alleviates your PMO from those kinds of projects, which don't need to be projects. It's just continuous improvement. And then you start focusing on things that have to be projects, like the new setup of something, or a new business, a new, a new product, a new system. So those things, transformations.
Yeah, or like a product launch, or things along those lines, where it's like we have a start point, we have an end point, we need to get from point A to point B. Now, I think that it is so great to hear you say that, and I think that you're exactly right about where the space is. When we first met each other, it was on a project that was, I think, actually a good place for a project, which is there was a company that was getting a new ERP system, and we were actually just on this small side of it, where part of the overall big project, big companies. And we were in this little small vendor, and we were trying to manage our little piece of it. And, it was, I remember it was like feeling like just trying not to get run over by the train, because, we're like the one tiny little compartment on it. And, so yeah, and I think that was a really great experience for me, because I think it did really highlight, the difference for me, because the company we were working for, they had a product. They were not thinking of it, though, in a product mentality. They were thinking of it a lot more in a project mentality of, okay, we need to just, what's next, and keep setting up these projects. It really was enlightening. Do you have any insights on the difference there, what we did back then?
Yeah, and of course, that particular example was very interesting, because that was a company that owned a product that they were selling. So they were the vendor. And that whole question of how do you create a roadmap to develop, if you have this great piece of technology, this great idea, which they have, how do you use your limited dollars? Because usually when you're in that startup phase, you don't have that many customers, right? But how do you use them wisely so that not only are you responding to your customer need today, but you're thinking about how you're growing this product? And of course, when you're small, your biggest customer will lead you. They're going to be the one that says, hey, I want you to do it this way. But then you have to question, yeah, but is that going to work for the market?
Right.
And so finding that balance, and that's the roadmap. And it comes back down to my biggest thing, which is you have to do discovery on everything.
Yeah.
And discovery is vision, mission, strategy. Because if you don't have that vision, mission, and strategy, if you don't have that very clear in your head, then your biggest customer will pull you, and they will make the decisions for you on how your product grows. And before you know it, that is your client. That is your business. And then you have some small little customers on the sidelines, but you're never quite doing it your way. If you look at Apple, if you look at Microsoft, all the greats, their visions burn bright.
Yeah.
Microsoft was a very simple vision, which was a computer in every household across the world. And they're achieving that.
Yeah.
And it's never changed, that vision. And, vision is something all the greats will tell you. whether it's, Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, be inflexible on your vision. Once you've set that vision for your company, that's your goal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, imagine you're building a fence. How do you build a fence? You take your first fence post and you stick it right in front of your feet. But where does your next fence post go?
Yeah.
It goes all the way to the end of the property on the horizon to your end goal.
Right.
Because once you have that second fence post set where you want to end up, you take your piece of string, you tie it around that second fence post, and you bring it back to the first. Now you have a straight line between where you're starting and where you want to be. And so every fence post you put in after that, it will always be a straight line towards your vision. When you don't have a vision for your product, your project, it doesn't matter if it's a simple upgrade or if it's a complex transformation. If you don't start with a vision and get everybody on board on that vision, you'll find that your fence posts will be all over and your fence is going to look like this. It's going to look like a big old snake.
Yeah, and there's, the people that like the agile mentality will tell you that, that maybe is a little bit desirable, but I think you end up kind of talking past each other because yes, you need to be agile. You have to be when you're talking about tactically, right? Like when I'm talking about, I'm solving problems in the moment. Yes, I want to be able to pivot, but I think you're just really hit on it. And I'd love for you to say more about it, but like, and maybe even go a little bit into the process of how we do it. Cause I know this is something that you've been working on for a while now, is how trying to create a process, a system for creating that vision, for creating that strategy. And, but anyway, just to finish my point is that strategically, you want to know where you want to end up. You want to have an end goal in mind. You can't just be like, I want to, have a product and I don't know anything about it. I just want to have something, right? That's going to end up just like you say, but if I say, I'm trying to solve this particular problem, here is, like you brought up the Microsoft example, I think Elon Musk is a great example as well. He is someone that is very vision led and he has made his company's vision led, and he's done it with SpaceX and done it with Tesla, where he just had this idea. I want a repeatable process for putting stuff into orbit, right? That's the SpaceX vision, right? And then the details there, I'm sure there was quite a bit of tactical maneuvering and agile and going back and forth, but ultimately they were trying to get there anyway. But yeah, you've been working on for a while now a process of getting your vision set up, getting your strategy set up. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you've done that, and then maybe give people a high level view of what's the mechanism that you can bring that vision out of your team, that is trying to plan this product or this project?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So often, what happened to me across my career is a senior executive would say to me, we want to do this. They'd give me one or two sentences. This is what we think we want to do. And it was my job to figure out how. That's like someone saying E equals MC squared launches a rocket. Great. I love that theory. Okay. But now there's a long road between that wonderful theory and actually having a physical rocket that you launch into space. In between is, what are those steps? We've got to obviously get the technology, the blueprints, there's 1,000 million things that go between E equals MC squared launching a rocket. And so my mind always works on that principle, is I don't need more than 2 sentences from someone to say, this is what I think I want to do. Okay, fine. Let's go talk to all of your direct reports. Let's interview them. Let's bring them together in workshops. Let's get them to articulate what this vision is, because you need that vision to be shared. And it has to be a customer-driven vision. It has to be something high level and conceptual. But then you take that and you say, okay, what's the mission? In other words, how? Your vision is your why. Why are we doing this? Your mission is how. And even the how is pretty high level. It's kind of, we're going to build a bunch of computers and we're going to ship them across the world. Whatever. It's a basic thing. And then you have to ask yourself, you have to look at strategy. And your strategy basically says exactly what you're going to do. And that's really looking at your target operating model, right? So what are the elements that you have available to you? How are you going to move and change those elements to actually make this thing happen? What are the policies, the processes, all of that? And by the way, there is no technology involved in this. Even when you're building computers, there is no technology involved at this point. This has to be about people and about customers. Think about Apple. They don't talk about technology. They talk about the fact that they want basically to create products that people use as an expression of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's great because when I'm using my iPhone, I'm not thinking about the technology on it.
Yeah. How does it work? Doesn't matter.
Don't care. I'm not that smart, right? I just want to know that I can do my banking. I can make my phone calls. I can be on a conference call and doing email at the same time. And so it's a customer-driven vision that they had that now makes me happy, and that's why they're doing very well, right? That's why these great companies, great visions do well, is because they think about the customer first. And so once you have your vision, your mission, and your strategy lined out, and by the way, even for small projects, like I want to build a website, okay, fine. But let's talk about your strategy. Let's talk about your vision. What is your vision for your company? What is your vision for this website? Oh, I don't need that. I just want you to build me a website. You're going to get in so much trouble unless you take 5 minutes to think about, what am I selling? What's my value proposition to a customer? So even when you think you're going in for a technology project, you're not. You're going in to do something. Technology is just the tools.
That's right.
But without a reason for using those tools, you're going to find yourself with a bunch of technology that's probably technical debt further down the road because you're going to change your mind 50 times. So once you've got your vision, mission, and strategy, you can think of that like an upside down triangle, right? That's from the top down. You get your senior leadership to make that decision. And then there's a bottom-up triangle. And you can do this simultaneously, which is looking at your current state, if you have a current state. What is my current application map? What does my application landscape look like? So many people can't even articulate or diagram what their application landscape looks like. Do that first, because a picture tells 1,000 words. What do you look like today? Yeah. And then at the same time, what is your value stream? What are the steps that you need to take to get? What does your product or your service do today? If you're working off an existing scope, how is it set up? How is it serviced? What are the transactions that you perform? How is it closed down? So what's your value stream? And then look at your functionality. Look at your processes. You need to know what your current state is. And it's very powerful when you have your current state documented, because if you're not writing it down, it ain't happening.
That's right.
If you're just talking about it, forget it. If you're having meetings where everyone's talking and no one's documenting anything, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
So bottom up, triangle, current state. Top down triangle, target state. And those two triangle pinnacles, they meet in the middle. And now you have that target operating model, which says, here's where I am today, here's where I want to go, and you start breaking that down. And then you ask yourself, what are the technology tools that are applicable to this vision, to this dream? But when you just buy a tool off the shelf because everyone else tells you that's the way you should go, okay, but you're going to spend a lot of time rejigging that tool to try and fit into what you finally realize your vision is. And this is such a simple concept, and yet it is so hard for people to understand. Technology does not solve your problems. You figure out your problem, you figure out your solution, and then the tools will come and make it happen for you. And if you do it that way, it's dead easy. But if you let technology lead you, good luck.
Yeah. Oh man, you said so much there. That was so great. This is what I've, been trying to preach to people all along, is that the technology is a tool. It's, if you're leading with technology, if you say, I want to build XYZ in this technology stack. I want to use this technology. Then you're already setting yourself up for failure. What you need to do is exactly what you're saying. And I love the visual that you gave with the two triangles, because it starts off really high level and pretty broad, like you said, a couple of sentences, and then it hones down into specifics. And I loved what you said about how you have to interact with all of the people. Right? That's how it becomes honed down, right? Is that you take this broad thing and then everybody kind of takes their input and kind of narrows it and narrows it and narrows it into this point. And then, talking about the bottom up is exactly the same thing. And you said there's so many people that find it difficult to articulate their current state. Well, and that's because that current state is distributed among so many different people, right? That are all using this tool, this application, this process. There may be, depending on the size of your company, 5 people, 50 people, 500 people, it could, really, and I'm not saying you have to talk to every single one of them, but you should talk to a lot of them. And as you do that, then you can build that picture up of what's my current state. And so in both cases, it's this process of interacting with the people in order to get to a point. And then let's start talking about what technology can we use? How can we make this vision reality now that we've articulated it? Anyway, so I love everything. I thought it was just so amazing. So I want to go ahead and switch gears a little bit. And I want, you've had a lot of experience, and I'm sure you've dealt with projects that succeed and projects that fail. And I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience on why projects fail. I'm sure it has a lot to do with kind of what we're talking about now. And then there's there's starting off wrong, but then I'm sure there's also some process things that happen. So what can you tell us about why projects fail?
It's interesting. You read different statistics. And of course, when we talk about projects failing, we have to think about what is fail criteria, right?
Yeah, so what does it mean to fail?
What does it mean to fail? Because if we look around, things get done. We're definitely moving ahead. Sure. We're advancing as a society.
Things got done.
So something got done. But if you look at the statistics, they say, well, you know what, only 5% of projects succeed. Maybe it's succeed in the goals that were originally set.
Yeah.
So, but things do eventually happen. But if we say it failed because it didn't come in on time, then we have to question, well, did we time it correctly? If it failed because it was over budget, well, did we price it correctly? Did we do discovery ahead of time to figure out what it would actually cost before we went? And then did we adopt an agile mentality, which we need to do? Because once we've got that vision, mission figured out, now we actually we have a long way to go still to figure out actually what activities we have to do, and then price those activities. And even when you get to your development stage and you say to someone, okay, tell me, here's my requirements, tell me what it's going to take, then the question is, well, how many people are you going to give me to do this work? We don't know until we take the hood off it, right? We just don't know. And that's an answer that business doesn't like from technology, but it takes time to get a technology team together, to get those requirements from business requirements to functional requirements to actually code level development requirements. And then it takes time for your agile cycles to evolve and to understand when you can deploy things, how you can do it. So timing and pricing are things that need to evolve. So mentally in our minds, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to set this project at $1 million and I don't even have my high level vision and mission figured out, and then I'm going to be mad and consider that it failed because a year later, it took longer, that's crazy. You have to say, okay, directionally, I think it might be this. We're going to do discovery, and then we'll reset that budget, and then we'll do a little bit more work. We'll start doing our real requirements. We'll reset it again. So you have to be monitoring and measuring that as you go. But getting back to your question about why things fail, if we talk about failing, not time, budget, whatever, politics comes up time and time again as the biggest reason. So stakeholder management on any project is critical for a project manager. The first thing you have to do is get into the hearts and minds of the people that you're working with, starting with your senior managers. If they don't like you and they don't feel that you're representing them, you're going to be in trouble and your project's in trouble. The problem is you often have on big projects many stakeholders, hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds. So how do you please everybody? You don't.
Yeah.
But what you can do is get in there and start bringing everybody together to understand that shared vision and mission. Because that way, no matter how you go through your project, that horse trading and compromising can happen between the different departments and divisions and the different leaders once they all understand that shared vision. So, each leader will sit there and think, okay, I want these 10 things to happen. But each of them has 10 different things.
Yeah.
But because they have a shared vision, when you start talking about, okay, listen, you'll probably only get 3 of what you want, you'll get 5, maybe you'll get 2, they start understanding why and being able to adjust mentally to that. So managing the politics on anything is really important. And it's interesting because one of the things that people always talk about is major projects end up coming in like when they rebuilt after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
That was, like took a decade longer and was 5 times over budget. The London Dome, the Millennium Dome, same sort of thing. So all these big projects end up being way more expensive. I think the light rail in California, I don't even think that got finished. But a lot of the reasons are that if politicians had to tell the public the real cost of something, it would never get done.
Yeah, they wouldn't start.
They wouldn't start. So there's good and bad in politics as well. But number one reason is politics, is trying to satisfy all of the stakeholders, and everyone has different interests. And I once again come back to, if you can help people have a shared vision, a lot of that can be mitigated. Another big reason, obviously, is we don't do discovery. We don't really take that time to figure out what is it that we want, what is our shared vision. The third thing, is simply planning.
Yeah.
We don't take time to plan. We think, I've got this technology, it's out-of-the-box technology. I've got a developer here, I can just get going. We don't stand back and plan. Say, okay, now we know what our target operating model is. How are we going to do this? People are impatient. They want to start. They want to get going. We need to just stand back and plan and plan and plot and plan, because it's actually cheap to do things on paper. It's incredibly expensive to tell a developer, that 6 months you just spent developing that thing, well, undo it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it a different way now.
No, I think that's great. And, the people that are in Agile will say, well, you don't want to just spend all your time planning. But again, I think it's people end up talking past each other. We're not saying that we don't want, when we're doing development, we want to be Agile, because, even the perfect plan, I think Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. It's like, well, sure, as soon as things start happening, you have to make decisions and you have to pivot. But as much of the detail as you can figure out, as many of the gotchas as you can figure out before you start, it's always desirable to do that. And I think you're exactly right that people, we had a UI UX lady here, Elena, and she was amazing. And she said something really similar about, people just want to hurry up and get started. And she keeps pushing them into a discovery to say, let's talk to all the users. What do they want to see? How do they use this thing? Right. And it's all these kinds of things where you have, hurry up and wait. Let's go ahead and get started. And then you run into the first roadblock and then you're sitting there, and it's like, well, could we anticipate some of these things? And I don't think that these being agile and responding quickly to change and having that mentality of we can pivot and doing a lot of planning, looking far ahead. I don't think that these two things are opposed to each other. I think that they're complementary. But it seems to me that there is this thought that you kind of have to do one or the other, and so anyway, we're kind of running towards the end. It went so quick as usual. I'll go ahead and let you have the last word. Is there anything else that you'd like to follow up on? Any place that you want to shout out, that people can come and find you on social media or whatever?
No, you can always find me through SecTech.
That's right.
Absolutely. And I love talking about this. So happy to talk to anyone and everyone who'll listen and provide feedback and help me learn as well. And I do want to follow up on what you just said about Agile and Waterfall. They are completely complementary. I run most of my projects that way. I run a waterfall process around the discovery and the planning pieces and even part of the design. But the development is all Agile. It has to be. Think about a website, right? You need a structured process to actually design the vision and mission around what you're trying to sell and who you're selling to. You need organization there. The Agile part is, okay, I pretty much have a design. I think I know where I'm going. But now I want to figure out the interactivity. How does that actually work for the user when they're interacting in my website? That's where it's Agile. But I've already set up what I want to achieve and what I want my user experience to be. But then actually doing it, that's where it needs to be Agile. I'll ask my developer, hey, I think if you have this button here, that's going to lead to X, Y, Z. So we try that. It didn't really work. Let's do it another way. But you're free now to be Agile in that space because you're not at development stage still trying to figure out what you want to be.
Yeah.
You already know that. So that's when Agile works best, when you give your developers the detailed requirements. They can understand what you want to achieve, and then you're just playing with the little things, and it's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was absolutely amazing. Thank you all for listening, and please like, subscribe, share, comment. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.